Welcome back. The focus of today's show is the housing situation and the number of people facing the possibility of losing their homes. What can you do if you're one of them? Joining us now with some answers are Andre Lewis. He is the housing director at the Urban League of Palm Beach County. Also, Maggie Sarubbi is a real estate agent in our area. And again, Shari Olefson is continuing to stay with us for the rest of the program. Let's begin, Andre, with you. You work with people facing foreclosure and talk about the human side of foreclosure. It's not just about a structure.
Yeah, it's not just about the numbers. We tend to focus on negative principles, market values, but there are people out there that have put what we call sweat equity into their homes. This is their home. You know, they've painted it the way they wanted it to look. You know, they've put a lot of investment into it, and I've seen families being affected by foreclosure and the possibility of them losing their home. I've seen families on the brink of divorce because, you know, in our society, the man is the head of the household and he should take care of the house and we should be sheltered. And, you know, these dynamics are breaking down our family structure, and that's the human side. Those are the stories that we hear every day at the Urban League of Palm Beach County that you might not see when you watch CNN or C-SPAN and those other things. They talk about the economy and what's going on.
Yeah, it's just not poor people either. I mean, this has really gone across the board, and I know, Maggie, you sell on Palm Beach in addition to in Palm Beach County. I mean, this is stuff that's affecting even people that have some means.
It affects all different price brackets in our economy, but there is hope. You know, we've had a very successful rate of closing short sales. I do want to add a glimmer of hope, even though it is a very difficult process. It does happen. You are able to initiate a short sale, and with the help of professionals that are familiar with the process, you can see the closing, and you can sell your home successfully. So I do want to add that, you know, there is a very high possibility that does happen.
And that's certainly less of a hit, right, than a foreclosure on your record.
Much better on your credit. And I think Maggie hit on a great point that, you know, being in foreclosure in and of itself is not the end of the world. It's really just the beginning of a process, and the way you handle that is very important, which includes finding a qualified realtor. It includes opening your mail, responding to the bank, and being proactive about it. You can make a bad situation a little bit better as opposed to a whole lot worse by the way you handle it.
It's just a shame, and I think we were just so accustomed to the way that everything went, and everybody had equity in their homes, and they felt like they were rich because of what they had in their homes. And it has really, I mean, it's a paradigm shift.
Well, and you know what, the really interesting piece of that is, because Andre was talking about the human element of this, and here's the truth, is that 70% of the middle class had their equity in their home ownership. 2/3 of our homeowners were middle class. That equity's gone. And that was a safety net that kept the middle class from slipping here down to here. We've already got poverty levels at 46 million people in this country, almost a 40% growth in suburban poverty. That's not inner city poverty. That's suburbs like West Palm Beach. It's huge. We've got 1 million kids on food stamps. We've got 7.5 million kids now living with their grandparents because their parents are unemployed or for whatever other reason can't afford to support them. With that safety net gone, you know, it's scary now. It could get significantly worse if the government doesn't do something particularly about employment.
And you can step in as the Urban League, and your organization can step in and help people. How?
Yes, we can. Our organization and the housing department that I work in, what we do, we bring a client and a family that's in crisis, and we look at your budget. We look at your situation and tell you the reality of your situation. What can you qualify for? Everybody, the buzzword today is modification. But in all intensive terms, that might not fit you. That might not fit your situation, and your bank might not agree to that. So we go down to the soup and nuts and the nuts and bolts, and we break it down and say, listen, you know, yes, you fall in that category. for HAMP modification, which would be the president's plan, and we would do the number structure for that.
Right.
So, but definitely, and just to kind of piggyback on what you touched on, and unemployment is at 12% right now in Florida. Unemployment is an economic lagging indicator. So this is the last to turn around, and this is what we need stable so that our clients can sustain home ownership. So these are the concerns.
And Maggie, do you see that people are now just so cautious because they know how bad things are? I mean, do you have a different buyer now that you're dealing with?
There really isn't a different buyer, but there is that frustration level when you're looking to purchase a short sale, that there's a lot of uncertainty. And you have to really educate the buyer and letting them know that although we have negotiated and submitted offers to the bank for purchase, that there's really no guarantee. Mm-hmm. The good news is that it has been streamlined more since the beginning of the short sales, and we're seeing that the banks are better equipped to deal with them, and the response period is a lot quicker. So it's very important that the seller does the right preparation up front, that they submit all of their documents so that it helps facilitate that process when the buyer comes in. Once the property is priced correctly, because that is key, offers will come in and we can start the process and secure a closing.
All right, very good. We have more to talk about on this housing crisis coming up right after this. We are talking about housing this morning, and as we have been mentioning, that this has been totally devastating to families, not just the couples who bought the home, but to the entire family, and in many cases the extended family. Andre, you were making a point during the break that if someone is in crisis, they really need to find someone who knows what they're doing and is HUD certified.
Exactly. If you know you're in crisis, you've received foreclosure notice, please contact the Urban League of Palm Beach County or any HUD-certified housing counseling agency. It's very important. Their services are free. And be leery of people that charge you fees. And I know we've all seen those commercials, but it's really true. There are people that are taking advantage of a bad situation and making money off of the sweat equity, as we talked about earlier, of individuals, and it's pretty disheartening.
Has this really changed the real estate industry, Maggie? I mean, just the way of buying and selling. Has everything changed?
It's changed dramatically, but with change you have to acclimate yourself and understand how to move real estate in this type of market. And a short sale does still remain a very viable option for sellers to sell their home if the loan modifications and other processes do not work for them. So the best advice I can give is to be prepared, make sure you have all of the documents that you need, communicate with your lender. When you do decide to short sale the property, ensure that you deal with professionals that are aware of the process, because it's very complex.
How soon can you buy a house after you short sell your existing home?
Fannie Mae has a new program, so they allow you to do that after 2 years. Or a deed in lieu, which is where you give the bank the deed to the property, and then they let you go away. That's after 3 years, versus a foreclosure, which could hold you up for another 8 years.
But because there's so many foreclosures, has that even lessened a little bit? I mean, it used to be it was foreclosed, they foreclosed. I mean, it was the dirty little secret. I remember growing up thinking, foreclosure, oh my gosh.
Totally.
Now
Before this, none of us really knew people who were in foreclosure.
Right.
And that's an important thing also for viewers to keep in mind, that this is not your grandfather's foreclosure with all of the social stigmas attached. And this, I'm calling this period the Great American Do-Over. The next 2 or 3 years, we will all really have an opportunity, those of us who ran into trouble, to get a second chance and get it right. But again, you need to be proactive about it. I think when people look back 5 or 6 years from now, in retrospect on this period, it's going to be a very forgiving time for people who ran into tough situations, because so many people did. But in doing that, there are some golden rules that people need to remember, sort of the things that our grandparents thought about that would have kept us out of trouble in the first place, because we see so many people rushing out, trying to rush out of their home just as quickly as they rushed in, without being careful about who they trusted, without reading everything before they signed it, without thinking, geez, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Those are just the common sense things that people can keep in mind and save more heartache.
For those who aren't maybe right on the brink of foreclosure, the underwater, the people with the underwater mortgages, that sort of thing, is there anything they can do to get a bank's attention to say, okay, I need help, or I'm going to need help, I know, if my mortgage adjusts, or I'm not going to be able to afford this forever, and I know it's my fault, but what can I do? Can you get their attention?
Short of a mask and a gun, which we're not advocating, it's very difficult to get a bank's attention. I mean, they're just overwhelmed. And when you speak with banks, I mean, Andre, you deal with this all the time. You're dealing with a servicer on the other end of the line who has the anonymity of you not knowing. There's no interpersonal relationship. There's very, very, very intimidating.
Several lenders have plans for imminent default. That means not behind, but I probably am going to fall behind. But we're not seeing that as much as we would like to. I think this would stop us from compiling the situation more than it is. Let's address these individuals that are in imminent default, and so we can stop the bleeding, so to speak.
And you certainly don't recommend anyone fall behind if they can avoid it, because that is not. A lot of people think, oh, I'll just miss a couple payments.
If you're going to miss them, put them in your own escrow account so that you have them. Don't go out and spend them at the mall.
Exactly.
We'll be back to wrap it up on a positive note, we promise, after this. Final question for our panel today. Look into your crystal ball 6 months from now. What's our situation? Better? Worse?
Well, I think with work, we're going to get better. I facilitated a first-time home buyer class, and I said if we give our first-time home buyers the opportunity to gain that knowledge prior to entering into a mortgage, it'll be better.
A better situation. What do you think, Maggie?
Well, the foreclosures and the short sales will not go away. However, with the halt in the foreclosures, I think the short sales might be a stronger point for you to sell your properties, since you know, they're still viable properties to go after at very good prices.
What do you think, Shari?
Definitely better. I mean, look, education is expensive. Anyone who's sent a kid to college knows that, and we've all had a really expensive education. The key is recognizing what it is that you have learned from this and applying it for the rest of your life.
Well, this isn't going away anytime soon. We'll have you all back at another time. Thank you very much for all of your expertise. And thank you for joining us. Have a great Sunday.